Hello and welcome to the second episode of Spotlight Indies Spotlight Library. I'm very excited to have on Tom Bookbeard, that direction, with this longtime friend of the channel and sometime wrenches the control away from us from the channel with the beardy takeover as part of the four beardsmen of the book Apocalypse. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Alex.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. I'm so pleased to have you along. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm pleased to be here, and I'm excited to share this story with people. It feels like a long time since I wrote it.
Okay, well, I feel like that's quite a nice thing actually, because I always wonder with, if I come to an author's work late, like where should I start? Should I start with the latest thing? Should I start with the earliest thing? So, if this is somebody's first time hearing something that you've written, then that's going to be great. First place to start. And if it's that they have read some other things you've written, then it's a nice deep cut for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like the DVD extras.
Exactly. That's what we like. Yeah, the extra behind the scenes footage.
Yeah.
Great. So for those few people who don't know who you are, do you want to give yourself a quick intro?
Sure. Now, when we did the Indie Spotlight event, is it Spotlight Indie Spotlight? I can never
Spotlight
remember.
Indie. I remember the first time I started doing the intros for it, I always got a bit confused, but it's Spotlight Indie.
Yeah. I mean, it just rolls off the tongue either way. Can't lose.
No.
Yes, when I did the Spotlight Indie event, I was asked, hey, introduce yourself during an author panel, and I really failed. So I can do better this time. But I still like the line. I'll use the line I used. I like books. I have a beard. I'm Tom Bookbeard.
I think it's very strong.
Yes, there is more. No, I'm an author, book reviewer for fanfightaddict.com. My first full-length novel, The Corsair, it's a sky pirate fantasy. I'm hoping it's going to be out this year. Don't quote me on that, but I'm working on it.
It's okay. It's not like this is recorded or anything. It's fine.
Yikes. Can we just edit that and post?
Yeah. Well, if you just hold your hand over your mouth and we'll edit out the
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, often I don't need to hold my hand in front of my mouth.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you can barely see the thing. Yes, so Sky High Pirate Fantasy is going to come out at some stage. We hope in 2026. Narrator, it did not come out in 2026. I've also appeared in 2 anthologies, Locks and Keys, which is by the Secret Scribes author collective, of which I am a proud member. There's an amazing cover by Lamia Byron as well, who wrote The Wingspan of Treason, which is a fantastic book. Funny stories, she wasn't able to write a story, so she said, well, can I do the cover? Would that be okay? And we said, yes, it will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, fine. That's out now on wherever you get your books. I've still got a few copies, so go to www.tombookbeard.com and message me, and I could probably send you one that's signed, but by me, not by all the Secret Scribes. The other anthology is the Book of Spores, which did very well on Kickstarter.
It had an amazing Kickstarter, yeah.
None of us expected it to do that well, which was nice. But yes, it's sort of out now, but it isn't, if that makes sense.
I've got a copy as a backer, but I don't think it's out, to the public yet. So I feel very special at the moment.
Yes. So you probably have your ebook at the time of recording, the 6th of June. But I don't think you have the main book yet, because I haven't got my author copy yet.
No. Yeah, I would like to. I would hope that you would get your author copy before everybody else gets one.
Yes, I hope so. But yeah, that is very good. Completely different set of authors, but yes, it's this sort of cosmic mushroom horror, whereas Locks and Keys was more secrets.
I like it. I like that they both got quite strong themes, those anthologies. So
yeah. But it is high time I grew up and published an actual book on my own, not just lean on others who know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're well on your way, and it sounds I'm, gonna, as soon as the pre-order link is up, we'll shout it out, we'll let everybody know, and I'll be first in line to go and grab a copy of that.
Much obliged.
So your novel is going to have some pirates in it. So we're here to talk about a specific story, and you're going to read it for us in a minute. Through the magic of editing, you're going to change your outfit for it as well, which is great. So could you give us a bit of a description of the story that we're going to hear in a second?
Yes. So the story is called The Valiant Jack. It was part of a project with Fraser Armitage, who you may know of.
Yeah.
He might appear on this channel every once in a while.
We let him out every so often.
Yeah, just sort of hangs around. No, he was doing this sort of sci-fi world building project, which is loosely based on the works of Shakespeare. It's this new space colony. All of the settlements are basically taken from Shakespeare's plays. The characters are all Shakespeare characters, but that's probably as far as the Shakespeare sort of comparisons go. Yeah, it was. I wrote this years back, before I was as involved, I'd say, in like the indie book community as I try and worm myself into nowadays. So it was refreshing to actually revisit this story. One, because I like it. I thought it was pretty good, but also to see how far I've come as a writer, because there are ways I would have probably put this story together differently. But it was nice to read it and see that it's not crap.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before. That's kind of that's the sweet spot of like not thinking that it's bad when you go back to it, but thinking, well, I'd maybe tweak a few things and maybe maybe describe things a bit differently, but knowing that it's a good story at its core, and you have told a good story. And I've had a sneak peek of it ahead of our chat now, and it is a good story. It's a really a fun romp. I mean, I don't want to give away too much.
It is a romp, but it's very indicative of what the Corsair is like. That sort of high action orientated, a lot of sort of comedy in there as well. At least comedic moments, probably more so in the Corsair than the Valiant Jack. But just having a main central character who's a complete bastard, who just doesn't get his comeuppance, which I enjoy writing.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean. And that, again, don't want to give too much away, but in a good way. Again, like it's it doesn't get his comeuppance, but not in a, you don't feel cheated at the end of it. You more feel like, yeah, that makes sense. Like he's doing very well. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's that it's from that sort of joint world, and with all the, I can see that now you mentioned it as well, the sort of those Shakespearean kind of elements and motifs and things. And yeah, I can. Do you think you'll do any more with this, or is this kind of, because it was that joint project, is it kind of on its own now? Is it not in a box because we're about to let it out, but is it to one side?
Possibly. Like, I don't know if there's any plans to resurrect the project. Like, if there is, I'd love to do another story in this universe because it was fun. Probably one of the biggest challenges, and I'm not sure if it comes across that well, was trying to write the speech in iambic pentameter. Which I think I managed. But it was at the heart of it. And I suppose I've gone on to do 2 anthologies, so it makes sense that my first writing project I tried to put out there was a group project. Maybe that had some bearing on the Secret Scribes of Vampire stuff. But no, I think I've got too many works in progress going on.
Maybe we'll revisit that after like the your book comes out, and then we'll let's do that. We'll focus on that first for you.
I mean, yes, I've got Corsair 2, which is called The Cartographer's Daughter. That's 40,000 words done now. I'm writing I'm writing a deck building Weird Western lit RPG called Frontiers of Evil, which is again completely different from Shakespearean sci-fi. And there's a secret project I'm working on as well, which I believe I'm not allowed to tell anyone about yet.
Okay, well, it's enough to know that it's there. To be honest, like for those of us who are, your fans, that's enough to keep us, waiting in the wings for a while. You've got, the 2 Sky Pirate ones, a deck building Weird West sounds amazing as well, Lit RPG. So the secret project, I think we've got enough to keep us going for the time being. Yeah,
It certainly keeps me busy.
I can imagine. I mean, I've only really got 1 book on the go, and that keeps me busy enough. So
Yeah.
I could imagine having three on the go.
Yikes! I know that pain.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I don't want to keep people from the story of the Valiant Jack for too long. So before we dive into that, and I'll let you introduce it. Do you want to let people know where they can find you and your stuff and sort of get news on your books as they come out?
Of course. So you'll find me on the usual social media channels, apart from Twitter/X, because it just got unusable.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I liked it, but no, not anymore. So yeah, Threads, Instagram. What's the other one? Blue Sky.
Yes.
It's all Tom Bookbeard or some Tom Bookbeard variant. I have a website, www.tombookbeard.com. And if you want to hear me waffle on to authors about sci-fi, fantasy, and play live RPGs, I have a podcast. I am 1/4 of the 4 beardsmen of the Book Apocalypse. We regularly take over the Spotlight Indie channel. So if you haven't seen us there, please do find us on YouTube, subscribe. We try to do at least 2 episodes a month.
Yeah, I mean, that's loads of places they can find you, and obviously we are great fans of the Beardsmen, as we're great friends.
Yes.
So
we
right,
need
so
to put you on the Beardsmen, Alex.
Absolutely.
You're one of the only ones who hasn't been on yet.
Yeah, not quite as magnificent a beard as yours, but I definitely have one, so I'm very happy to come on. Yeah. What was it in like Dexter's Lab when it's not the size of the beard on the outside or something? It's like the beard on the inside. There was a whole episode of that. That is a deep cut to my childhood there that I wasn't expecting to pull out.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah. Okay, right. So another blast from your past this time. Do you want to give us a quick intro to the story that we're going to hear, and then we'll cut to past Tom, who's going to give us a reading.
Yes. So I hope you enjoy The Valiant Jack, a neo-Shakespearean sci-fi. Who even knew that was a genre? But it is now. It has hover barges, pseudo sky pirates. They're piratey and a lot of slapstick action and things blowing to smithereens. I hope you enjoyed.
The Valiant Jack by Tom Bookbeard. The Valiant Jack screamed into life as its weathered old captain hit full throttle. A laser blade swung wildly over the captain's head as its wielder lost her footing. He could smell the ozone millimeters from his nostrils as the shimmering orange blade burnt through the smog of New London. Before his attacker could recover, the captain dropped his shoulder and crashed his full weight into her, sending her tumbling, ragdoll-like, over the side. More sailors were crawling like monkeys above the crisscross of rigging that littered the sky above. 2 more dropped onto the Valiant Jack and squared off against the captain, who eyed them both with a snarl through his bone-white beard. One sported a bejeweled eye patch glinting under the light of the moons. The other had a fetching pair of mutton chops adorning his face. "Captain Falstaff!" shouted Puck, the idiot boy who had exposed their cargo of tainted formula, as he liked to call it, and started this whole mess. He pointed unhelpfully at the sailors facing off against his captain, while swatting away another 2 sailors that were attempting to scale the side of their barge. "Not now! Roll per jump! I'm somewhat busy here!" Falstaff roared. Eye Patch and Mutton Chops charged him with their taser dirks drawn. He caught both stabs with his cutlass and spun them away. His maneuver hadn't brought him much time, but it was enough to look around him. The Valiant Jack bolted from the dry dock and out onto the Elizabeth River. Up ahead was New London, and, beyond it, the estuary. If they could just get further up the river, they'd be free of the mangy curs that were besieging his beloved barge. The locals scarcely ventured out to sea unless it was time to hunt for sea monsters, and the dry dock was still full of foul-smelling blubber and oil pulled in a mighty sea sycorax skull from their latest hunt. Eyepatch and Mutton Chops regrouped and lunged at him again. Falstaff dodged one thrust and parried the second. He shifted his feet and struck back. His cutlass bit deep into Mutton Chops' shoulder, and Falstaff felt the nerve-shredding scrape of blade on bone. Mutton Chops cried as his taser dirk clattered to the deck. Falstaff forced the man back, but Eyepatch darted forward and made to shank Falstaff's armpit. Falstaff broke off and hopped backwards to dodge the desperate blow. Eyepatch came forward again, but Falstaff was quicker. His first swipe of the cutlass disarmed Eyepatch. The second sent him spiraling to the floor with an arc of pink red blood mirrored the colour of the swearing moon above. 2 death ships burst out of the dry dock in an explosion of planks and unfortunate sailors. They belched clouds of basalt smog into the air. More dogs for the chase. Falstaff and Mutton Chops blinked at each other before Falstaff sprinted forward and drop-kicked the man square in the chest, sending him backward somersaulting into the river. Falstaff groaned back to his feet and patted down his threadbare duster. He instantly regretted kicking Mutton Chops in such a manner. His hips were already protesting.
"Oh, take the helm and stoke the fire. Come between us and away we may get,"
he shouted as he hobbled to the bow. Falstaff's cracked fingers closed around the swivel gun, and he gingerly tested its weight. "Aye," came the reply. Puck scampered to the helm as the death ships picked up speed. Their lolloping forms bobbled up and down on the river behind them like nodding horses. They weren't fully equipped for a monster hunt, but they were still armed to the teeth with barbed nets, harpoons, and incendiaries. Falstaff kept the swivel gun at the front of the Jack well oiled and loaded, but it would barely scratch the paint of the vessels in pursuit. His fingers drumming against the polished brass handles, Falstaff let his mind drift to the days when most jobs weren't so hectic. Before Puck, Falstaff regularly made the formula smuggling run to Belmont. He was getting on in years, and the crates of black market formula he was shifting was too much for him to handle by himself. He'd taken 3 crew members aboard the Valiant Jack to help him: Dutchman, Isabella, and Norfolk. Dutchman, block-headed muscle of the crew, had been the first to sign the list and the first to leave. After months escorting Westies around New London with Falstaff, Dutch simply got bored. He'd hopped aboard a death ship and made for the sea the first chance he got. Last Falstaff heard, Dutch had had his limbs plucked from his body by a neon hydra, but had died with a satisfied smile on his face. Isabella was next. She was a feisty one, but her knives were nowhere near as fast as her mouth. The girl swore enough to make the Kraken blush, and drank enough to knock the water cycle out of kilter. Her digits were marked from her attempts at pinfinger. Any more than 7 stabs and she'd skewered herself a new scar, of which there were many. Unfortunately for Isabella, her spine had been realigned by a shadow walker in a New London tavern. Falstaff still vividly remembered the cold and shining lapis lazuli blue eyes of the shadow walker and Isabella's dying words, telling the dumbfounded patrons to go and fuck themselves as she bled out. Lastly, he thought of his first mate, Norfolk, a handsome fellow who'd showed up at the gangplank of the Valiant Jack one evening while Falstaff swabbed the deck to the soothing clanking of the moored hover barges. He'd set down 3 crates of formula and brazenly asked the captain how many gobs he'd be willing to part with for them. Falstaff tried to part Norfolk's impudent head from his shoulders, but the man stood firm and soon talked his way into passage and the majority of the profit from that particular run. Norfolk was a fantastic barge pirate. He was debonair, His swindling tongue effortlessly parted fools with their gobs, and he sported an endless supply of purple waistcoats that brought real class to their smuggling outfit. He cut the formula with a little extra spice. Falstaff wasn't sure what, and that proved very popular with the revellers in the seedier parts of New London and Whitehall. Falstaff had even contemplated an early retirement before Norfolk decided to try the formula himself. When Falstaff found Norfolk slumped against an open crate of formula, his retirement plans were shelved. The room was a powdery scarlet haze, but through it, Norfolk's eyes were rapidly spinning through a full spectrum of colours, and a huge shit-eating dopey grin smeared across his face. There would be no going back. Norfolk had been sampling the stuff for months, and whoever his supplier was wouldn't be pleased to know where the money was going. Falstaff left him to his fate in New London, and angrily swore never to take on a smiler like Norfolk again. Luckily for Falstaff, Norfolk's spice supplier sought him out and was happy to cut out the middleman and keep the old pirate in business. With no crew to speak of, and privy to the growing demand for chems in Belmont, Falstaff needed young blood to help him hover the Valiant Jack up the Elizabeth and lug the crates into the dry docks. He met Puck when the lad was scrounging at a game of liar's dice and making a miserable attempt at picking Falstaff's pocket. The boy hadn't needed much by way of convincing when signing onto the ship's list. A firm tweak of the ear and a boot up the backside had converted him to the cause, sure enough. Unfortunately, Puck proved to be a frustratingly stupid boy. When he'd prematurely jimmied open one of their formula crates in the middle of the dry dock, Falstaff had ground his palms into his eyes in frustration as the shouts of sailors all around chorused for their arrest. Falstaff now watched as the boys steadied their speeding barge along the Elizabeth. The boy drifted too far to starboard, and it was giving their pursuers precious seconds to catch up. Ahead of them, the estuary, freedom, grew larger and larger. New London also loomed nearer, leaning out over the water as if eager to get a better look at the death ships gaining on the pirates. Falstaff looked for anything to slow them down. There were a few other hover barges dotting around, but they wouldn't lend them any aid. He looked toward New London and the branching waterways that surrounded it. Falstaff nodded grimly and called over to Puck.
Boy, turn the Jack to port. New London is amazed to lose our tail.
Puck heaved at the helm and the estuary veered away, the Jack chugging towards the Black City. The death ships still gave chase, but Falstaff could see the glints of their captain's spyglasses following the dragon's trajectory. The Jack picked up speed as her old engines finally reached their maximum. The waterways that ran behind the city were narrow and peppered with mooring ships, merchant stalls racking out over the water, and buildings that loped and stretched at all angles. The pursuing death ships were broader than the Jack, and, porcupine-like with all their harpoons and cannon, would struggle to fit. A shower of splinters raked Falstaff's cheek as the deck exploded between him and Puck. A harpoon suddenly jutted from the Jack, and its chain clanked violently as it pulled taut, spraying acid-green venom over the boards and sending the two of them tumbling to the floor as the barge. Coughing from the vinegar stench of the venom, Falstaff achingly pulled himself to his feet. New London inched tantalizingly close. They were slowing, and other death ship was now lining up.
Full up to port. Give them the shot.
Falstaff roared. The boy heaved at the helm once again, and the Jack strained against her new leash. The primed death ship disappeared behind their tethering comrades as the Jack made her move. The death ship attached to them veered awkwardly as the harpoon cable pulled taut. Falstaff's eyes lit up, and he bounced to the helm, shoving Puck aside. He spun the wheel this way and that, snaking the Jack in a zigzag berth as she zipped into the New London waterway. The wash upended several smaller vessels that had been bobbing in New London's mouth. The death ship behind was rocked back and forth. Falstaff looked behind them and smiled as their linked death ship bucked wildly off course. The Jack screamed forward as the death ship's crew let loose their harpoon cable, and their helmsman desperately tried to correct their course. They failed. The death ship slammed into the city wall and disintegrated in a shower of sparks and boiling metal. The second death ship pressed on and battered its way through the wreckage of the first. Falstaff returned his attention to the bow. Locals peeped out of their windows like meerkats to see the source of the commotion. Falstaff kept as steady as he could as the death ship behind churned up the gap. It bumped and scraped its harpoons and nets against the waterway tunnel walls and destroyed any gangways that jutted out too far. Puck set to freeing the harpoon that was sticking out of the book. The death ship was almost near enough to touch. Falstaff glanced back and saw its crew's angry faces chewing at him, swords at the ready. One sailor drew their pistol and cracked a shot at him. He felt the pellet bury into his right shoulder and grunted his disapproval. His hand briefly slipped from the wheel and the front of the Jack slammed hard into the boar's head inn he was often partial to after a smuggling run. The tavern was obliterated, and the Jack bounced up into the air. She slammed back down and a wave of black water and sludge crashed over the bow. The thrashing waves wrenched the death ship into the wall of the narrow corridor, and its helmsman was powerless to stop the ship from wedging firmly. The sudden stop was too much for its hull, which exploded down the middle as the ship jackknifed. Screaming sailors were catapulted in all directions. The lucky ones hit the water. Unlucky ones were impaled on the remnants of the ship and the tavern. Puck cheered, and Falstaff let out a long. He reached for his shoulder and felt as the rich blood seeped through his fingers. He slowed the Jack and set about navigating the rest of the waterway at a less frenetic pace. They were a horseshoe trip to the safety of the sea, but they wouldn't be able to go anywhere near the Elizabeth River for a long time. Falstaff delved into his duster pocket and withdrew a grubby tin flask. He unscrewed the lid and gulped down a bitter and medicinal swallow. The alcohol didn't mix with the brine and the soot of New London, but he didn't care. After an hour's chug around the city, the Jack was finally free of the waterway and putting merrily towards the estuary. As they skimmed through the city's watergate, Falstaff could have sworn he heard a loud thud. He paid it no heed, for a yelp from Puck led Falstaff to pocket the flask and squint ahead. He felt his stomach sink into his knees as the black-cloaked figure unsheathed its katana. The stowaway whipped its cloak to the side to reveal a jet-black metal armor underneath. Its hair was tied into a high ponytail which flicked around like an enraged viper. Shadow Walker? Puck whimpered and retreated. The Shadow Walker slowly turned and set its gaze on Falstaff from underneath a heavy grey cowl. Its mouth and nose were hidden by a ventilated black mask, but the eyes were ice. Lapis lazuli. Falstaff's mouth gaped as Isabella's still body flashed before his eyes.
Captain Falstaff, I should have skewered you the night I slew your hateful crew member. I won't be letting you live this time. London is best rid of your souls.
Falstaff's own eyes flicked the scrambling Puck and put to the stowaway. The boy was reaching for the hilts of two pistols stashed in his doublet. He growled and grabbed for the blunderbuss he kept handy by the helm, whirling about to let loose its contents. The Shadow Walker moved with an inhuman agility, and its katana knocked Falstaff's blunderbuss to the side, the explosion of buckshot splishing 100 ripples into the Elizabeth. Falstaff didn't wait to be sliced. He swung the butt of the blunderbuss wildly at the Shadow Walker, who danced and parried the heavy blows away in mesmerizing waltz. One whisper of the katana severed the blunderbuss in twain and severed one of the lapels of his duster. He felt a sting as the blade scratched skin. Falstaff threw both ends of the blunderbuss at it and leapt forward, tackling the figure as it swatted away the debris. His opponent hadn't expected such a direct move, and they both clattered hard to the deck. Falstaff rolled away, coughing and wheezing, the air forced from his lungs. The Shadow Walker grunted in discomfort before spinning themselves acrobatically back to their feet. Falstaff scrambled up and bounded for the bow. He heard the clacking of the Shadow Walker's armored feet gaining on him. Just as they were upon him, Puck sprang, screaming, into view. The boy held 2 flintlocks and discharged them at the Shadow Walker, who took both shots square in the chest. Its armor absorbed the force of the blow. Falstaff had enough time to tear past the boy. He leapt onto the guardrail and dove for the swivel gun, his calloused hands gripping the handles and his momentum slinging him around to bear down on the deck below. Shadow Walker sent Puck spinning to the floor with a broad strike from its katana and looked up at Falstaff with its frozen eyes.
New London, 'tis crying shame,
Falstaff cackled.
but now we must part ways, and you part from this world.
He fired. The Shadow Walker tried to leap to avoid the blast, but they were shredded to ribbons. Falstaff's shoulder blistered with pain and he sank to the floor, panting. Below him, Puck whimpered and clutched at his bleeding chest. The Jack reached the estuary and happily gurgled out to sea. The pulsar cannons gazed mournfully after them.
Well, spit in my face and pull me a horse. We made it out, you and me, in this rusty barge. Say, boy, come close, turn your ears to the sea. The pulsar cannon are mighty quiet tonight.
Falstaff heaved Puck to his feet and put his arm around him. As the boy leant his ear towards the towering cannons, Falstaff seized the youth's collar and heaved him, hicking and stuttering, into the dark swell below. "Old man!" Puck cried.
Oh, Puck, mind that you save your strength. I'm ending our arrangement. Now, what say you to the water?
He pointed his pipe at the looming shadow behind Puck.
"You mad old bastard! Help me!"
The lad screamed. Falstaff said nothing as the wide-eyed youth shot beneath the surface. He lit his pipe, winced as a fresh wave of pain quivered through his shoulder, and watched as the water turned crimson.